Hello, everyone, and welcome to a recap of Phase 1 of Myles Maarav's Pursuit of Happiness. My name's Pyra Draculea. This little dude is Myles. Now, this is an alphabetical book. It was begun as inspired by Struthless's Alphabet Superset Challenge. So each spread focuses around a letter of the alphabet. And I have already done a video a couple months back of A through K, where I talked in more depth. So I'm going to flip through those pages because I think it's good to have all the pages in one go, but I'm kind of just going to quickly flip through A to K because I've already talked to them, and the video link will be in the description below. Some stuff is probably going to get redrawn because not so much that my style has evolved, but some of the detailing. This is a much thicker line than I normally use now. Plus, there's some stuff like initially I was still showing Myles with earrings, and then later I decided no, like that comes from another project that I'll link in the description below, the Bonomo sketchbook. And later I decided Myles doesn't have earrings. So if I'm happy with the art overall, I'll probably just Photoshop them out like here. But this page where he's in the art gallery for A, I think I probably will redraw. I might even redraw the gallery because like that's a much thicker nib that I was using. It makes the letters very blobby and hard to make out. So but anyways, the redraws will happen at a later date. So A for art gallery and arcade. And I'm just going to toss things off to the side and organize them later. B, a beehive and a beach. This one as well, his tail is like weirdly long. Now, I mean, most tails are proportionally long, but usually I would draw the tail about like that and it's way too thick. So anyways, this one also may get redrawn. What the project overall, I will say, is initially I was doing these and I wasn't sure what the project was going to be. I think I thought I was just going to do the drawings and then put out a teeny tiny little book as a test run for print on demand art stuff. Later on, I decided I would write short stories for Myles's perspective. This is C for Carnival and candy apples and whatnot. And in drawing these, it helped me learn a lot about his little personality, because before then, I talked about it in the other video, he was kind of a marginal character, cartoon in the margins of that Bonomo sketchbook. So this project, and then also once I brought him into the Ricky B. Rat world, really developed his character. So there's stuff I know about him now that I didn't know then. This one, though, I'm happy with that drawing overall. I would just Photoshop out his earrings and the tail. It's a bit long, but that's fine. D for dentist and driving in the mountains. I'm happy with this. Other than, again, we're going to fix that earring. But these are the things I didn't know when I started, right? Things evolve. I will also, for the road, I will make that a double layer, invert one of them, and erase things out so that the road is black with a white line, and then the car is light colored. But that's for later. E, Egypt, eating, Elvis. This is when I found out that Myles is an Elvis impersonator. Still got to remove that earring, but it's a lot easier to do. These ones, it's pretty straightforward. So that ended up having a whole side thing. And actually right now I'm beginning work on a coloring book. Hopefully I'll have it done for the fall of 2026, but I better get cracking because, June's almost over and just working backwards when I need like proof copies and whatnot. But if it's not done for this Halloween, it'll be for next Halloween. But it's a story about Myles going trick-or-treating as a grown-ass adult, wearing his Elvis costume. And his rationale is he's short because he's half mouse. And if people don't question, then, if they're giving candy, and they're not asking to make certain that he is indeed a child or a teenager and not a 28-year-old accountant, well, who's he to refuse the free candy? Anyway, so that's the Elvis thing's going to actually end up being a whole book. F for filing. Rats and mice have claws, so he does. This is going to be the easiest of the Photoshops to remove the earring, but he's, some of his daydreams aren't necessarily things he wants. He does not look like he wants to be a figure drawing model, but wearing a fez with a fan with fish on it. But, random things pop into people's heads as they're doing their filing. And then G is for grandma. This is one. Now, some of these will end up staying as spreads, and this one is very well designed to be a spread. I mean, the slot machine kind of disappears, but it's going to disappear in, like the gutter of the book. So that's fine. But he's hanging out with his grandma. This would be Grandma Maarav, so his mouse grandma, not his rat grandma. When I brought him into the Ricky B. Rat world, what made sense was to make him Ricky's girlfriend's cousin. So his mom is a rat and his dad is a mouse. But he grew up, actually, Grandma M is the one who raised him pretty much. His dad is started out as a used car salesman and is now like a tycoon owning a whole bunch of different businesses. So anyways, vaguely loosely based on Jimmy Pattison, except Jimmy Pattison here in Canada. I never heard that Jimmy Pattison, was a philanderer or a womanizer or whatnot, whereas Myles' dad, Myles has 7 brothers and sisters from 6 different, there's 8 kids altogether. One is a set of twins, so 7 different pregnancies, 7 different mothers. None of whom his dad Larry didn't marry any of them. But he paid the child support. But Myles is the one that he raised, because if you think about the size difference between a mouse and a rat, it made more sense for Myles to be raised amongst the mice so he could be the big bully, whereas in Ratsville he'd get the living snot beaten out of him on a daily basis for being small. And the rats don't like mice. But anyways, that's kind of a whole thing. Obviously, I gotta fix his earrings, or remove them. H, holiday, hot air balloon, haberdashery, hiking. It's bloody hot. He's wearing a Hawaiian shirt and he's buying another one. And hammock. So there's Myles hanging out, having fun. Again, we gotta do something about the earrings, but that's an easy Photoshop. I mean, I'll complain about it when I'm doing it, but, fairly straightforward. And that was the run that A through H that I think I did on like a weekly basis in 2023 in the fall, like really going gung-ho. And then I got a little sidetracked. I was done, I think, I want to say 2024, sometime in, January, February. So there was a few weeks, couple months in between. So we've got ice cream, ice skating, and Myles is an accountant, so income tax. And you can see by now he doesn't have the earrings anymore, so I don't have that to Photoshop. That's Big Mike, who is Ricky's boss, and I realized I forgot to draw in because Mike always wears a Hawaiian shirt. Anyways, I can probably fix that later, but this is obviously Myles in his Maarav Money Services accountancy firm in Ratsville. He decided to move to Ratsville, basically because his dad became a tycoon. Like when Myles was born, he was just a used car salesman. But at some point then Myles runs into the issue of everybody going like, oh, you're just where you are because your dad is rich, blah, blah, blah. So he wanted to strike out on his own and make his own fortune. So he went to Ratsville, hang out with his mom and whatnot, although his mom drives him crazy. But, and there is actually a thing in some of the Ricky stories it's hinted at, and this is stuff that I Some of them were in the Ricky B. Rat podcast, but I don't do that podcast anymore. I'm going to turn those into short stories in a book. But there's some indication that Myles, when he moved to Ratsville, he did buy a house, but then he realized he could make, $3,000 or $4,000 a month renting out the house. Now, obviously, he doesn't need money, but he loves money. And then he could live in his mom's basement for free. So that's what he's doing. So, and he ends up getting tapped to chaperone Ricky and Baby a lot, which annoys the crap out of him. But anyways, and so there's I, and then there is a gap. This might have even been in 2025. I'm trying to think. 'Cause H and G, I'd have to check when I did, because I used to film shorts, so I'd have to check those. But there was definitely a gap. I think it might have gone to F and then had a month or something gap, and then G, and then H a few months later, and then I, even later. So it was kind of on the back burner for a while. It wasn't until this year, I think at the end of January, when I picked it up again and started working on these. And I think at that point I kind of knew, I was like, oh, I'll write some short stories. But I don't have any of the short stories written, so every week I would randomly pick, actually what it is I have an English to Irish dictionary app on my phone. And the reason why I'm saying that is the vocabulary is kind of limited. So I would scan through that for each letter and pick out words that jumped out at me that I thought would illustrate well and also jive with Myles. And then I would decide on my illustration based on that. Now that these 26 spreads are done, and some of them will be full spreads like this, some of them, as you'll see, I started breaking it up where it's two completely unrelated drawings for the letter. Anyways, so I will now write the stories, and if they need extra illustrations after I've written the stories, then we will come back for a phase 2 and illustrate extra illustrations based on the stories I've done with this. And that's also where, say with A, if I'm going to redraw it, then I'll do it that. Anyways, J for jury duty, and I'm going to do jujitsu on the judge. And K, I think K was the last one in the last video. And Myles again dressed as Elvis, as the king, doing kickboxing with a knight on a castle keep. This, I believe, was the last drawing that I had in the previous Myles video. So from now on, we will talk through. So that got through. Well, that was in a little bit. So the next one was L for Lakeside Ladies Men. So there's Myles. There's his dad, Larry. Larry's got some friends. They love him for his personality, not his billions. Well, I guess he's a billionaire. If he's based off of Jimmy Pattison, then Jimmy Pattison is a billionaire. But, even if he's just a multi-millionaire, obviously the girls have ulterior motives, but that's okay because Larry has his own ulterior motives. Anyways, Myles is trying to talk business. Not that Myles doesn't like bimbos. He does, but he it's bimbos are for entertainment. I'm trying to talk business with my old man. That's Larry Jr., who is Myles's eldest brother. And then we got a landscaper with the leaf blower. This is a lake. There's some things that I like about this drawing. Some things I think I will redraw. First of all, this girl in the middle, when you get, when it's stuck in the middle of a book, her face is going to disappear. So I think what I probably do, I'll have to think about the composition, but I think I'd probably put this girl, flip her around so she's kneeling and then have the girl with her arms waved going, yay, either over here or over here. I like her being in the center if it was not going into a book, you know what I mean? But because it's going to be a 2-page spread in a book, it's going to mess up. Also the lake, this little lagoon part of the lake, I'm not thrilled about. I kind of do like the thing jutting out. I like it jutting out here, which kind of forces it, but I think it would probably work better if it was there, and that was gone. Though it wouldn't feel as squished. I don't know. I'll probably do a couple road trips to some local lakes and kind of see their contours and, anyways. And I'm not totally happy. Parts of the water, I like this part of it. I'm not, so anyways. It's probably for composition reasons, considering the problems with, the book format and a 2-page spread. I'm probably going to tweak this and probably end up redrawing it. But I like the general idea where Larry's always got bimbos around and Myles is talking business, and Larry Jr. also always has bimbos around. He's the one who's taking over the car dealership empire. Anyways, so that is Lakeside Ladies Men. Another one, probably going to be redrawn. This one, I like the general idea. That nib is way too fat. Like I'm not happy with how, I like the idea of him using it's actually Monopoly money, not real money, because Myles loves money, so he wouldn't actually waste money on lighting a cigar, but, I like the general layout. I like the idea where he's roasting marshmallows on that. I like, the money cast around, like the coins. I like the motorboat. I don't like the execution of certain things. There he is with a big mug of coffee, which is practically a bowl, reading a magazine. And model tanks, one of his little passions that we don't see too much, but he does love model tanks. But this is a prime candidate to get redrawn. And this is also one, so when you're doing a page layout, what you kind of almost want is a little bit, because you're going to have a full bleed, right? And they may crop it. So you don't necessarily want it to line up exactly. You might want it to line up a little bit more if it's overlapped or off like that, so anyways, some of the proportions and stuff I'm not thrilled about. If you do see some things like the E was one where the pyramid had an offset at the margin here, and that's because when it actually overlaps, it'll be right. But anyways, if you see things like that in here, that's one of these. But N, so we've got Myles on a night out at a nightclub, but he's kind of wishing he was home, eating noodles with his newspaper, kind of nesting on his sofa. Granted, that would be a daytime view, but not a nighttime view. He's got nachos. He's got his nightcap martini, So, yeah, that's a spread. Now, this one, if I put it right on the line, I mean, mostly this one does actually line up exactly. There's some weirdness here, but again, that's going to disappear in the middle of the book. And this girl, I don't know what she's talking about, but Myles is not having it. Oh, oh dear, this is the optical illusions. This is one where I may redraw parts of it, but actually what I may do is this part, just kind of figure out what size I need and do it in like Procreate or Adobe Illustrator or something like that. So I would have perfect lines and then drop that in amongst these. But anyways, he's going to the optometrist. We've got optical illusions, which drawing them by hand is, I found they're messy. That's why I'm saying I might redo these digitally to play around. He's doing origami, another kind of, it's not a great optical illusion, but a similar kind of style. He is yelling at the oarsman rowing. He is the coxswain. And he's betting, got the odds to bet on an ostrich race. So I like the overall, the optical illusions did not they were a mess. Doing it with liquid ink and whatnot, probably doing it with like pens like this would be a lot better, although I can be pretty messy even with these. So again, that might be something there. And here, this is one where we kind of have a bunch of random stuff. So when I'm coming to write the story, is it going to be a story about one day or whatnot? So these kind of montage-y, collage-y kind of pages, I don't know. They may not end up in the final book, or they may be cropped out. Maybe there's going to be something about him doing origami, or going to the optometrist or something. I don't know, or betting at the ostrich races. So they may get broken up. It may be that I end up, when I have the story, I'm like, no, the story is he's at the ostrich race and he's betting. So then we have like a big spread. That's just that. This is one of the first ones where they are completely unrelated drawings. So this would not be a spread, really. And also, there's we've got a theme going through with Myles and food. Going back to the B, he's on the beach eating his lunch. E, he's eating and daydreaming about... This would actually go really well with the eating and Elvis thing. Because in Egypt, because now he's dressed as a pharaoh. It's P, right? So pharaoh, and he's got pie and pizza and pretzels and pineapple and a pitcher of lemonade. So like this might go with that if he's got a story about, dreaming of Egypt while on his lunch breaks or something like that, right? And then we've got him for P, he's playing polka. He's practicing accordion and kind of an I was going to originally do an O for Oompa band, but then I thought, oh, well, that would work with P for polka. I mean, he's practicing. He's in a park. The background is based on Dr. Sun Yat-sen Gardens in Vancouver that has a pond and a pagoda, and then these kind of crazy limestone rocks that have kind of bubbles that have worn away, dissolved out of them and whatnot. So maybe we'll have a story about him play in his polka band. I don't know why, but polka just seems like something Myles would be into. Kind of a weird... I mean, polka's fun. I sometimes, when I'm drawing and whatnot, if I'm not streaming, I will sometimes... Well, I gotta even that out a little bit. I'll sometimes go to YouTube and find like a polka compilation that's like 2 hours of instrumental music or something like that, because it's high energy and whatnot. This is a spread Q for Quest. He's dressed as Elvis again. I think we've got that's the other thing, because we had the first Elvis, so it could go off in one direction where he's eating, and then another where, or it would just be separate stories throughout the book. But this, I think, definitely goes with K, where he's dressed up on a castle keep. And I think when I was drawing this, I was even thinking of that, going like, why don't I connect it to that? And those two can be illustrations for the same story, which means, would they be as full page, like a full spread in the book, or would this kind of get scanned and then end up being like a half page? I don't know. It's going to also kind of depend on the size. 'Cause I figured out the proportions and whatnot for a fairly small page size. So I will have to actually do some test prints and whatnot, do some mock-ups, just print it out, crop it, and then like Scotch tape it together and see what it feels like in hand. Is this too small? Is it awkward to handle? Especially if I'm having stories. If it was something like where it was like poetry or something, who cares? Because the text is going to be just really tiny and it's all about the art. And I have some books that like printmakers have done where it's mostly prints and they'll just have like a couple sentences about whatever type of bird they were drawing or something. And that works even in a tiny thing. But if it's a short story and you're trying to read it, I think if the book is too small, it becomes awkward. But I mean, so I may have to like crop things a little differently or whatnot if the aspect ratio changes, but I'll figure that out as we go. So that's Q. This is another one of those collagey montagey ones that I like aspects of it, but I think I would probably redraw with all of these being separate. I like him on the whitewater raft, and and then going over a bridge. So we could have where he's going over the bridge. The idea here is road trip, right? He's going over the river. That could be one illustration. And the next we see him, whitewater rafting. So we kind of realize, oh, okay, he's been driving to that. He's got a model rocket. This is supposed to be a roller coaster. Somebody, I think, referred to it as the Ferris wheel. It does kind of look more like a Ferris wheel kind of car type thing other than the tracks. But yeah, plus basically what it was is I was tired that day and I didn't feel like drawing a whole ass roller coaster with other people in it. So I just drew the one car, but really it should be the whole car. But anyways, I could see the roller coaster, make that another illustration, the model rocket, another illustration, and plane roulette, definitely another illustration. So I like the idea. I like the components. This one's going to be redrawn almost 100% certainly. But I do think there would be, and roller coaster, that goes with the carnival, had one in the background. So it could be that he goes on a road trip, goes to visit this carnival or whatnot. And the road trip also, the idea is Ratsville and Mouston are about an hour's drive apart from each other, and there's a canyon with a river in between. It's the border between Mouseland and Ratland. So, he would be making that drive back and forth a couple times a week because, visiting mom and dad and all that. So it may not actually be a real road trip, but, just he's going for a drive. Anyways, so a lot of ideas in here that I like, but it probably isn't going to show up like this in the final drawing, in the final book. And two completely unrelated. So originally for S, I had drawn scuba diving. And then when I got to U, I realized I couldn't really see anything that I liked for U that would work. So I just was like, well, scuba diving's underwater. So anyways, then I had to figure out something else for S. And what jumped out at me is sand. So he's building a sand castle here, and he's stuck in a sand trap. Golfing. Again, like I originally, well, not originally, because originally it was just going to be the drawings and they were going to be random and that, right? And then the second idea, when I was like, I could do like short stories and whatnot, I was thinking at that point, oh, I'll do 26 short stories, one for each layer of the alphabet. At this point, I don't think I will. I think it'll be fewer stories and, or I'll see how many stories I kind of brainstorm and which drawings go with which, or actually, I guess what I'll do first is kind of lay them all out, probably like sit on my living room floor and lay them out and kind of go like, this one feels like it goes with this, like the Elvis drawings and whatnot, find a flow through them, and then sort of figure out stories from there. So yeah, I have no idea how many stories it's going to be and whatnot. I just know I have these drawings and I expect I will do more drawings. So now T, again, this is going to be a Thanksgiving story. This is kind of a tale of two Thanksgivings. So at his dad's place in Mouston, there's Larry Sr., Larry Jr. I don't know if these are sisters or sisters-in-law. Those are nieces and nephews. Because of course, Larry has a bunch of grandkids now, and probably, I don't know if he'd have great-grandkids. Probably not. I don't think so. Because Myles is 28, and he's not the eldest. That's Larry. But I think he's like the third or fourth eldest. I think I wrote the list out somewhere. I got to find it again. So in order for Larry Sr. to be a great-grandpa, Larry Jr. would have to be a grandpa, and he's not. So, okay, so these are just nieces and nephews, and, certainly I think a couple of Myles's younger siblings do have kids, but not all of them. I've got some photoshopping I got to do about tail angles and whatnot being wrong, but we've got it in at Larry's house. Grandma M has probably been the one who baked some of this stuff. They probably bought some as well or catered it. Got the pots and pans in the back there. And the idea is this table just keeps going because, again, there's 8 kids. Myles is still single, and I think his youngest couple of his youngest sisters are in high school. But mostly, half of them have spouses and the kids of their own, so the table goes way out. Anyways, and we've got some cheese, macaroni and cheese, and, buns and all this, so loads of grub back there. So this is the most Thanksgiving, and actually what I'm working on, I was working on editing the story this morning, is a Ricky B. the Rock and Roll Rat story about Thanksgiving. And Ricky makes mention of that the mice do Thanksgiving in January, that the rats do it in October when it's supposed to be. Ricky understands that Americans do it in November. Ricky's a little confused by that because October is closer to the harvest, but it's like, well, whatever, Americans do it different. That's okay. But what's really weird is that the mice do it in January. And the mice do it in January because of stored food and being thankful for stored food, I guess. But anyways, what this means is that Myles gets Thanksgiving in October in Ratland, at Ratsville. So this is his childhood bedroom for when he would come and visit his mom. So we've got the Bat Mouse poster. We've got the kind of Memphis design, late 90s, early 2000s kind of pattern, his childhood teddy bear and whatnot. So that's this picture. But also, although I'm just thinking now, this is actually improbable because if Myles has moved back home with his mother so that he can rent out the house that he owns in Ratland for more money that he doesn't really need, but he lives in his mom's basement now. So why the hell would he have gone up? Well, maybe this is going to be a story about before he moved to Ratland. And then when he moved to Ratland, he's like, Mom, I'm going to stay in the basement. I don't need the kiddie bedroom. Plus, then it's more privacy because the upstairs kiddie bedroom is probably right next door to his mother's bedroom. So he wants that little extra separation. Maybe. Hey, Pyra, make a note of that. This story is from before Myles moved to Ratsville. Anyways, so we solved that problem on the fly. Yay. And then this is Thanksgiving in January with the mice. So, like I say, a couple things. The perspective is skewed and doesn't really work, but we'll just ignore that, probably. Like that's going to a vanishing point there. That's going to a vanishing point there. Those are going to not the same vanishing point as either one. And then that's vanishing over here. Anyways, it's all messed up. But maybe Larry shouldn't have been so cheap with his contractors. Anyways, so that's T. Now we have the scuba scene from that I mentioned earlier, originally done for S, and now it's U for underwater. So there's Myles, he sees a shark, it's a shipwreck technically, it's not really a ship, but it's a boat wreck. A little fishing boat down there and all these tons of fish. This is fun to do. I think the longest drawing I've done, this was like over 2 hours per side, so 2 streams to finish it with all the detail. But I'm happy with the detail and like all the little, like there's an octopus there, there's crabs, another octopus, various corals and anemones and moray eels, and anyways, I love it. So whatever this is about, like we're already seeing a pattern that Myles is into the water and whatnot. He's got his motorboat back there. He likes hanging out by the beach. So that one. I guess what I'm going to do is try and find where you would find reefs that kind of look like that, and then write a story based on Myles going to that location. Of course, it's a semi-fictional world, but like we hear mention about like Los Angeles and New York and real cities. Ricky more so than Myles mentioning that because Ricky works in a recording studio, so his boss goes down to LA to work and whatnot. But I kind of have this vision of, you know, the United States of cheese being in between the United States of America and Canada, by half, so that they would kind of be in the Pacific Northwest, sort of. But anyways, I might just kind of leave it vague and imply that there is the USC somewhere and that they fly to LA, and not say down to LA, because that, if you're going down to LA, then that implies you're somewhere north of it, right? So if I have it as its own country that's somewhere on the planet, but is somehow separated, that might work out better. But anyways, that's a whole other thing. So for V, we have, first of all, vending machines. There's Miles's candy bar. It's not giving refunds. And Myles is going to take out his frustrations on this vending machine and get his effing candy bar out, which it probably won't actually give him anything, right? But, you know, he'll at least get his frustrations out. So I have that one. And then this one, the thing I chose was Venetian mask. So he's dressed up as an old Commedia dell'arte character named Pantalone, who would have like a black cape. The outfit would be bright red. The shoes would be yellow. Cap would be red. And the idea is that Pantalone is, he's a greedy asshole. He's an older dude. Myles is 28, so that part's not accurate, but he's a womanizer. Myles does do that. He took after his old man. You know, Myles doesn't have kids yet, but, you know. Anyways, so Pantalone is greedy. He's got his coin purse and all this, and so that's kind of Miles's spirit animal. And I didn't remember to get a reference for Venice. I've seen videos, like, I haven't been there, but I've seen videos, so I have a vague idea of what it looked like. And then I think I was starting to draw, there's one bridge that's quite famous there, and I realized I kind of messed it up. So I just made it into a backyard. So maybe it's like a Venetian carnival themed party, but at Larry's house or something like that. I haven't decided yet. I'll come up with it later. So now W. Again, Miles on the water. That is a whale, like based on a humpback. I've been watching a bunch of videos on whaling and humpback whales and stuff. So that's how, you know, they come up from below with the giant mouth, and then they got this massive like ball of herring and whatnot. There's a video somewhere, which is actually really funny. This one whale figured out where they had like a salmon fishery in Alaska with these giant pens in the water, and the whale would come and hang out. It knew year to year when they released all the small fish. So it would come in, it would hang out in the bay waiting for them to open the nets, and they would try and delay, and the whale would just stay around going like, you got to release the fish sometime. I'm going to eat them all. You know, of course they're not allowed to harass a humpback whale. That's illegal. So like they're trying to figure out ways to get around them. And then at one point the freaking humpback just figures out that, because I think they took the bottom off the pens, going like, well, maybe some of the fish will mostly stay close, but they'll kind of trickle out enough. It's like, no, they had video. The freaking humpback just came up from below and was like eating all the fish out of inside the freaking pens, because the pens are obviously, I mean, a humpback's mouth is about 10 feet wide. So, and the pens are probably not that huge, maybe like 30, 40 feet across, but that's plenty of space for a humpback coming straight up and coming back down and just like eating like tons and tons of these fish. And the guys are, at the end of the documentary, they still haven't figured out a solution to get this effing whale out, and there's nothing they can really do other than they're become a bait station for the whale. And once it ate all the fish, then it would leave and come back the next year. Anyways, like, I was watching documentaries on that, and I just thought it would be funny if Miles is out water skiing and this whale comes up right behind him, and just, you know, Miles may have peed his wetsuit there, or he's kind of not really wearing a full wetsuit, but, you know, his shorts. It's a whale, water skiing on the water, and a whale. And then, speaking of Big Miles and gorging yourself, there's Miles with some waffles and watermelon. So again, coming back to our ongoing theme about Myles loves food, which is something Ricky comments on in the Ricky stories as well. He's like, he doesn't want to say Myles is fat. Myles, I mean, he's a husky guy, but he's not like, he's not massive yet. He better start watching his diet or he will be. But Myles, the way Ricky put it is like, put it this way, he don't skip seconds. He don't skip dessert. So there's Myles. That's kind of not enough waffles for him, but we'll assume this is like at a all-you-can-eat breakfast place, and this is just the first batch. Yeah, the knife and fork look a little too clean for him to have already been polishing off waffles. So, X. Again, 2 unrelated drawings. So, Myles with X-ray Spex. At his age, this is just this splattered. I don't know. Maybe I'll leave it and assume he has like a little mole there or something. At Myles's age, I think it's safe to say he's probably not bothering buying X-ray Spex because I'm sure he's seen actual boobies by this point. Well, we know he has. He's kind of a womanizer, so he has been around. But I'm thinking of him like cleaning out some of his stuff from his childhood bedroom or whatnot. He finds these X-ray Spex for when he was a kid, and he just remembers how furious he was that they don't actually work, and he got ripped off. I just realized there's like a turquoise kind of bounce there. That's from the light there. I think I managed to get rid of it. But anyways, if there's been a turquoise spot on all these drawings, it's from that. Anyways. Also, I'm hearing the birds in my yard are like having all, I don't know, screaming fight or whatever, but they are chattering. I don't know if it picks up in my mic, but if you hear, if there's been constant chirping, that's why. They're hanging out. I think they like sitting on my power line, which is like right above, like the service to my house is basically 4 feet over and straight up. So anyways, there's Myles with his X-ray Spex, and then I also picked xylophone. He's taking his frustrations out on his xylophone, which you should not hit them that way. That is taiko drumming style. That is not how you play a xylophone. Although I guess if your dad is loaded and just buys you new xylophones, it doesn't matter. Now, Y. Y is for yacht. So, Myles buys himself a pocket cruiser. I was looking up like mini yachts because I'm thinking, he's a mouse, he's not a big dude. And one of the ones that was suggested was the 42-foot Azimuth Verve 42. And I will, hey, Pyra, put a link to the tour down there. I know I put it in the link to the stream. But anyways, here he is. I changed the name, of course, to Mouse and changed the logo. But that's based on the design of that yacht. And called it the Azimuth Nerve 42. He looks happy. And he looks happy here. He doesn't have any bimbos, but honestly, when you looked at that motorboat thing, he was ignoring the bimbos and he's just like driving like this. So he's going to whip this thing around. I think at top speed is supposed to be 45 knots. If I'm not mistaken, that's like 80 kilometers an hour or something like that. Close to 50 miles an hour on the water, something like that. Anyway, so he's going to blast this thing. And it's small enough that it's maneuverable and whatnot if you're Myles and you're used to driving boats. And also small enough that he can avoid annoying relatives wanting to borrow it or whatnot. I'm sure Larry probably has a giant yacht, so they can go on Larry's yacht, and this is Myles's yacht. But if he does want bimbos, he can fit a bunch of them in here. He can put one on either side of the helm when he's driving. And then they have the little sunbeds and whatnot out there. So he could have a bunch of bimbos on this boat. But it's not designed for that. It's for Myles to have fun and escape people. So, and they are not cheap, trust me. I was like, what does that yacht cost? Because of course they do the promotional tours. They don't talk about the cost, right? I'm like, okay. I Google and like a new one would be like $1.5 million. I'm like, It's more than my house. A lot more than my house. But, you know, anyways. Perhaps in the cartoon world, the prices are more reasonable. They don't have quite the inflation. Anyway, so it's his, and he called it the Tail Chaser 2 in Oil Slick Bay. So there's Myles and his yacht for Y. And then I just finished this week, Z or Z, depending on your preference, for the zoo and zebras. So he's he's there with his coffee and kind of leaning against the railing. He's looking at the zebras, and I haven't decided yet if the story is going to have where he actually rides a zebra, or if he's just daydreaming about riding the zebra, because we have daydreams as an ongoing thing throughout the book. So that brings us to the conclusion of this tour. So, like I said, I now have to write the stories, which means that on the Monday night streams, we're not working on Myles for a while. I'm going to be working on the Ricky B. Rat Thanksgiving story, and Myles is in that. In fact, actually, I think the first illustration is going to have Myles in it, and then he kind of comes back later in the story. So we're going to be working on that on Mondays for a while. So why don't I, as I wrap up, there we go. Thanks for watching. Subscribe. There's Myles and Ricky. I think we can tell, well, I mean, it says, but even if I didn't have them labeled, I think you could tell who was who by the attitude. So thank you for watching this tour. And like I said, we will be back with more of this project, you know, hopefully in the fall sometime. We'll start working our way through. Hopefully by then I've got at least the first couple stories and I can start going. But we have not seen the end of Myles, not by a long shot. Yeah, so what I'm going to leave you with at the end of this video is a link to the various Myles streams so far, so you can watch. Now, the early ones prior to J, if I filmed them, I just did shorts. Not sure if I actually put those shorts on that stream or not, or on that playlist or not, but definitely from J forward, all the streams are on it. So if you want to check out how I did the work and, you know, my blathering about ideas and all that as I worked, you can check that out now. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you again real soon. Bye for now.